it's Patrick Allies here, Artistic Director of Siglo de Oro. I just wanted to put up a Christmas Eve post to talk a little bit about our disc Christmas in Puebla, because this probably would be the most appropriate day in the year to listen to this CD. As you probably have worked out by now, the CD is based around a Mass for Christmas Eve. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about the context of the music, because I thought it might help you enjoy it even more. So this Christmas Eve Mass is by a composer called Juan Gutierrez de Padilla. He left a position at Cadiz Cathedral in southern Spain in 1620 and travelled to the New World. Now at this point, New Spain, the colony, was a century old. It was a wealthy outpost of the Habsburg Empire. And Padilla was highly employable, because he was an instrument maker as well as a music director. And he very quickly got a role as assistant director of music at Puebla Cathedral in 1622. I think it's important to acknowledge that at this point in time, the 1620s in New Spain wasn't an entirely happy place. I think we have to acknowledge that as we perform this music today. This was a time still of significant oppression of indigenous people. It was also a time of significant amounts of slavery from Africa to the New World. And I think that we have to acknowledge both of those things, both those kind of elements of suffering that are part of the context of this music. And now this music itself, Padilla's music, I think forms part of a bigger tapestry, a bigger culture of trying to meld together a lot of cultural influences. So you do have musical influences in the pieces on this disc that are European, but also kind of Afro-Hispanic, and also you'll hear indigenous languages as well, like Nahuatl, which is one of the Aztec languages, which is also featured on this disc. So the cathedral itself in Puebla was the kind of centerpiece of this city, and it was also kind of the centerpiece of the region in terms of kind of uniting everybody under this new Christian identity. And Puebla at this point, we know, was a big city already, 28 streets east-west, about 15 streets running north-south. But the cathedral itself actually wasn't complete at this point. In fact, it wasn't consecrated until I think 1649. So it's still a work in progress when Padilla arrives. Padilla, as a composer, he obviously writes the mass setting that is what holds this disc together. But we also included the motet by him, which is the model that the mass is based on, and also several of these villancicos. Now, the villancico is a fascinating thing, because although you've probably heard about motets and masses being sung in church, a villancico sounds like a secular thing, and indeed it started off as a secular idiom, a secular genre, that then I think really the church realized the power of this style, and eventually, certainly by the 17th century, these villancicos were part of the liturgy. They'd been brought into the church. And then alongside Padilla, we have a sequence of pieces by composers that had a connection either with Puebla or with Padilla. So we have a piece by Gaspar Fernandez, who was an older generation, Padilla's predecessor at Puebla Cathedral. And then we have several pieces by people that worked with Padilla. So there's a piece by Lopez de Capillas, who was an organist and dulcian player at Puebla under Padilla. But a dulcian being like a kind of almost similar to a Baroque bassoon. And then the piece that you'll hear just a little clip of at the end of this video is a piece by Juan Garcia de Céspedes, who was actually Padilla's deputy, who would go on to succeed him at Puebla Cathedral. So we've got this kind of group of composers, Padilla at the center, and all the pieces here are on a kind of Christmas theme that kind of go along with this mass, which is it's called Missa Joseph Fili David. It's based on this motet And the text of the motet is a reading for Christmas Eve, and it's the story in Matthew's Gospel of when the angel visits Joseph and says, "Don't be afraid." So that's really the kind of mood here. It's kind of soothing mood that you'll get hopefully in the motet, and then the mass and the villancicos go off in a more celebratory direction. We also know that quite a lot about the group of musicians that Padilla had available to him. So that's why on this disc you'll hear singers. We know we have fantastic singers at his disposal, boys and men. In this case, obviously, we are men and women. But we also know that Padilla had this amazing group of instrumentalists at his disposal. In fact, all of the musicians in Puebla would have been taught the bass viol. So they would have all had at least one instrument, possibly another, and they could kind of switch between them according to which pieces required instruments and which pieces required singing. So we know, for example, that there was a virtuoso harpist, Nicolas Grinon, who was recruited during Padilla's time, but he also had dulcian and sackbut players. He would have had an organist. We've included guitar, which we know that guitars were in the inventory of Mexico City Cathedral in 1614. So the guitars were there. And so we've included guitars on this disc, which I think adds a huge amount, actually. And then we've also included simple percussion instruments, like the cajon and the castanets, which we know were widespread in Latin America by this point in time. So Padilla had a group, we know, in 1651 of 26 musicians at his disposal, singers and instrumentalists. And it's this very rich sound, which I think is perfect for a kind of celebratory point in time like Christmas Eve. So with that, I will just hope that you enjoy listening to the disc, and wish you a very happy Christmas.